Good Friday. Today is not quite Good Friday. Almost. It's a Good Friday either way. Today is Friday, April 11th, 2025. Call the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee to order. There is a quorum present. Members, the plan for today is hard and fast deadline of noon to be done and out of here, having passed a budget bill with policy in it. So it's going to be one combined omnibus bill. The plan is to utilize the omnibus policy proposal that we worked on in the last couple of sessions to Senate File 1417 to clean that up with a few amendments. Then we'll lay that over as amended. Then we'll pick up the budget bill. I've got it backwards. We're going to start with the budget conversation, lay that over, then we'll pick up the policy, delete everything, we'll clean that up a little bit, then we'll combine them. Since I'm the author of the bills, we're going to turn this over to the Vice Chair, Senator Umu Verbatim, to run the proceedings. Set? Yeah, I think so. Good.
Okay, Senator Latz, you have the A1DE to Senate File 1417. This is our budget omnibus.
I move its adoption.
Okay, Senator Latz has moved the A1DE, and we do have some amendments I think that we'll be taking up that are drafted to the A1. Did you want to start with a walkthrough of the spreadsheet?
Yes, I would, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Senator Lemire?
Some of us do not have a DE A1 amendment in our packets.
Oh. We'll get that from staff.
I'm not sure, Madam Chair, if the public has copies out there in the audience either.
Thanks, Senator Limmer. I know it was posted online, but we'll check if there's copies for the public, and it looks like we're getting the copies from staff right now. Okay, Senator Latz, did you want to proceed with the walkthrough?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would. This is the Chair's recommendations for the Judiciary and Public Safety budget. I'm going to ask Mr. Turner, our fiscal staff, to walk us through it.
Mr. Turner.
Madam Chairman, members, first I'll give the bill some overall context. I'll talk about the Senate targets. Senate was given, or the committee was given, a fiscal year 26-27 target of $106.2 million over the base, which was 58% of the governor's rec of 183.1. And the tails target for fiscal year 28-29 that the committee was given was 114.4 million over base, which is 56% of the governor's rec. So the targets were a little over half of the governor's rec. And move on to the spreadsheet. I'm going to skip the baselines and just discuss the decision items. As you'll see, the governor's rec is on the left and shaded, and the chairman's rec is on the right and unshaded. We'll start with the Supreme Court. The first decision item is on line 4, governor's operating adjustment. The governor has a biennial total recommendation for 26-27 of $2.837 million. That line, he telescopes that line. It includes judge and employee salaries, health benefits, and the Minnesota Justice Center lease increase. Over on the Senate side, we break out that number into the 4 categories: judge's salary increase, employee salary increase, judge and employee health insurance, and the lease increase. And so that one line in the judge's or in the governor's rec is comparable to the total of those 4 lines, which is $3,645,000. I'd like to point out that the Senate recommendation represents 1.5% and 1.5% salary increases each year for judges and employees alike. The governor is a little less. Move on to Board of Civil Legal Services, line 16. We have an operating adjustment recommendation from the governor, 26-27 of $3,518,000. The chairman's recommendation is $2,074,000, or 59% of the governor's rec. Then we have the Court of Appeals. Line 23 is the one-line governor's operating adjustment, $1,011,000. Once again, the Senate recommendation is the sum of those 4 lines, those breakout lines, which is $1,063,000. Again, 1.5% and 1.5% salary increases, with the governor a little less. I'm sorry, I've already skipped over something. I'd like to skip back up to line 9. There's a Senate-only provision, which was a court request for digital accessibility. The chairman funds this at $828,000 each year, one time. Then we move on to the district courts. Once again, the governor's recommendation is one line, a biennial appropriation of $24,469,000. The Senate comparable number is the sum of the first 3 lines, because the district courts they don't lease space from the MJC, and that is $25,108,000. Once again, the Senate is 1.5% and 1.5%, and the governor is just below that, or could squeeze that in. Then there's another Senate-only provision on line 38. Once again, it was a court request, but the governor did not include it. It's also a Senate file 2861, forensic examiner rate increase, a $29 hourly increase from $136 to $165 an hour, and that costs $2,685,000 each year, and it's an ongoing expense. We move to the guardian ad litem, line 45. The governor recommends a biennial total of $1,661,000. The chairman's rec is $747,000, which is 45% of the governor's rec. Move to page 2. Tax court operating adjustment on line 52. Governor recommended $123,000 for the biennium. The chairman concurred. Uniform Laws Commission, the governor recommended base funding. The chairman concurred. Board of Judicial Standards, line 62, the governor recommended a biennial total of $1,321,000, and the chairman concurred with the governor's rec. We move on to the Public Defense Board, line 69. The governor recommended 26-27 total of $10,202,000. The chairman's recommendation for the biennium is $3,581,000, or 35% of the governor's rec. Department of Human Rights, the governor recommended an operating adjustment of $469,000 for the 26-27 biennium. The chairman recommends $211,000, or 45% of the governor's rec. Office of Appellate Counsel and Training, the governor recommended base funding. The chairman has a first-year base cut, and then also the savings from Senate File 2006, Senator Kunesh, which come from a lower salary range from the original cost estimates when the office was established. Minnesota Competency Board, on line 90, operating adjustment, 2-year increase from the governor of $786,000. Chairman recommends $354,000, again a 45% of the governor's rec. Cannabis Expungement Board, the governor recommends an operating adjustment of $45,000 a year, and the chairman concurs with the governor. Move to page 3, sentencing guidelines, line 109. The governor recommends a biennial appropriation of $60,000, and the chairman concurs. Then we move on to the Department of Public Safety. The first division in the department is Homeland Security and Emergency Management. The first decision item for that division is on line 119. The governor recommends an operating increase of $2,545,000 for the biennium. The chairman recommends $1,145,000, or 45% of the governor. The next line is a Senate-only provision, Senate File 734, supplemental nonprofit security grants, authored by Senator Westland. The governor or the chairman recommends $125,000 each year, one time. Line 121 is an operating adjustment, a small operating adjustment in the environmental fund. That's it for Homeland Security. Move on to Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. First decision item is on line 131, operating adjustment. The governor recommends $2,839,000 for the biennium. The chairman recommends $1,278,000, 45% of the governor's rec. Then there's a governor's only provision, long-term missing and unsolved homicide cases. He recommended $1.5 million the first year for this. The Senate chose not to fund this. The next two lines are the State Fraud and Financial Crimes Unit. It's the transfer from the Department of Commerce to the Department of Public Safety and the BCA. The governor recommended $1,810,000 each year ongoing. The chairman funded this at $1,115,000 each year ongoing. The $1,115,000 is the base appropriation that will cover the current agents that will be moving over from the Department of Commerce to the BCA. The governor's rec, which is $695,000 a year higher, represents an additional 3 FTEs, I believe 1 agent and 2 attorneys. Once again, the chairman just committed to the transfer of current employees. The next line, 134, State Fraud and Financial Crimes with the from the Workers' Comp Fund. That's simply the positions that are funded by the Workers' Comp Fund in Commerce. They will now move to the BCA. The next division is Fire Marshal at the bottom of the page. The Fire Marshal and the Board on Firefighter Training and Education are both funded by the Fire Safety account. Just like to say up front, the chairman concurs with the entire governor's rec and the fire safety agencies. There isn't any difference between the two recommendations. That includes the following initiatives. Line 145, the operating adjustment, $45,000 each year ongoing. Chairman concurs. The Urban Search and Rescue Team increase, it's $550,000 each year ongoing. And then we have the search and rescue team base adjustment. We're moving the base of both urban and rural search and rescue teams from the Board of Firefighter Training and Education to the fire marshal. This isn't an increase, it's a transfer. The next line, hazardous material response team increase, $475,000 each year ongoing, and once again, the chairman concurs. Then on the top of the next page, we have the Board of Firefighter Training and Education, and I just want to make sure that there's no confusion here. Line 157 shows what looks like a base cut, $1,675,000 each year. That's not a cut, it's just a change in the fiscal agent, and you'll see the same $1,675,000 in the fire marshal. So that, just want to point out, transfer, not a cut. Then we move on to alcohol and gambling enforcement. There's one decision item on line 165. Governor recommends a biennial total of $401,000. The chairman recommends $181,000, which is 45% of the governor's rec. Office of Justice programs. We have a number of decision items there. The first is on line 174. The intensive peace officer education and training grants. The governor recommended $2 million each year one time for this, and the chairman chose not to fund this item. Line 175, both the governor's rec and a Senate file. Senate file 852, Senator Oma verbatim, crime victim services grants. Governor recommended $5 million in the first year one time. The chairman funds this at $3 million the first year one time. Line 176, Senate File 1580, Violence Prevention Research Center, is the Senator Pappas bill. Chairman funds this at $250,000 each year one time. And we have Senate File 1835, Legal Representation of Children in Need, another Senator Pappas bill. The chairman funds this at $100,000 each year one time. We have Senate File 1291, the Minnesota Sex Offender Program at Moose Lake. Public safety costs, Senator Rarick's bill. The chairman funds this at $50,000 each year one time. We have Senate File 1308, Shelters for At-Risk Youth Grants. That's Senator Putnam. Chairman funds this at $150,000 each year one time. And then on line 180, we have Senate File 2291, Prosecutor Training Grants, Senator Seeberger's bill, $100,000 each year one time. Move on to emergency communication networks. This is not a general fund division. This is funded by the E911 account. The governor has one initiative on line 189, Armor Maintain Critical Infrastructure, $14 million from the 911 account in the first year one time, and the chairman concurs with the governor's rec. Then we have a Senate-only provision, driver and vehicle services on line 197. This funds the ignition interlock bill, Senate File 2068, Senator Latz. That's it for the Department of Public Safety. Move on to page 5, Peace Officer Standards and Training. There's two decision items. The first is operating adjustment. The governor recommends $140,000 for a biennial total in operating costs, and the chairman concurs. Then we have the Philando Castile Memorial Training Fund. The governor recommended $2 million in the first year, one time. The chairman concurs, but he spreads it out over $1 million each year, one time, for a total of $2 million. Private Detective Board, line 220, we have the operating adjustment governor's rec of $25,000 for the biennium, and the chairman concurs. Then we move to the Department of Corrections, the first division of which is incarceration and pre-release services. First decision item on line 229 is the fiscal year 2025 operating deficiency. Governor recommends $9,091,000 in fiscal year 2025 to close that, and the chairman concurs. Then we have the governor's operating adjustment of $12,404,000 in the first year, $37,925,000 in the second and subsequent years. The chairman's recommendation is $9,970,000 the first year, $17,513 the second, for a total of $27,483 in the 26-27 biennium. That's 46.2% of the governor's rec. The next line is bed costs for theft of public funds. It's a governor's provision. It's in the bill. It's funded at $12,026, $45,027, $87,000, and $145,000 in tails, 28 and 29 respectively. And like I said, it's in the bill, so the chairman concurs. Line 232, bed costs for Senate File 1163, Senator Marty, inclusion of cruelty to animals in crime of violence definition. This will lead to a bed cost of $6,026 and $10,027 in subsequent tails. On line 233, we have bed savings for Senate File 206, aiding and abetting felony murder, as Senator Omer verbatim bill. The savings are estimated at $61,000 in 27, $101,000 in 28, $104,000 in 29. And that savings continues in the out years. Then on line 234, we have Senate File 1719, a Senator Latz bill, Task Force on Mandatory Minimum Sentences, and the chairman funds that at $133,000 in the first year one time. Community and supervised release, line 241 is the operating adjustment. $8,783,000 the first year for the governor, $14,211,000 second and subsequent years. Total of $22,994,000. The chairman comes in at $10,347,000 for the biennium, which is 45% of the governor's rec. Then we have the governor recommending sentencing to service program funding cut, $1,773,000 each year ongoing, and the chairman concurs with this recommendation. And we have organizational, regulatory, and administrative services division within the department. There's one decision item, line 249. For the biennium, the governor recommended $27,784,000 for this division. The chairman comes in at $12,503,000, or 45% of the governor's rec. Okay. All right, we'll move on to page 6. Ombudsman for Corrections, one decision item, operating adjustment. Governor recommended $55,000 for the biennium. Chairman concurs. Clemency Review Commission, lines 267. Governor recommended $28,000 for fiscal year 26-27 with tails, and the chairman concurs. And we have we're funding two other agencies in the bill. Line 273, we have an $18,000 one-time appropriation to the Secretary of State to fund Senate File 2039, Senator Latz, judicial property records cloaking. And line 274, another Senator Latz bill, 1492, the creation of a civil commitment division within the Attorney General. That's funded at $438,000 each year ongoing. Then we have the general fund transfer to the community justice account, $461,000 each year ongoing. And that's it on the public safety part of the budget appropriations. I've got a couple general fund transfers on the last page. Move to page 7. We have revenue adjustments. Line 310, we have a civil court filing fee increase from $285 to $310 unless you're getting a divorce, in which case it's $340. That brings in $2,495,000 each year ongoing. The next line is a motion fee increase, $75 to $100, $25 increase again. That's $765,000 each year ongoing. And then finally, we have the Minnesota Family Resiliency Partnership fee reallocation. This is a Senator Westland bill, Senate File 543. It's a general fund reduction because the fee is reallocated from the general fund to the partnership, an additional $30. That comes to a general fund shift of $446,000 each year ongoing. Then we have totals, a target check line, and then finally, underneath it all, we have fiscal impacts from other funds in the bill. And we have on line 328 and 329, we have the charter school fire inspection fee increase. That fee will bring in $37,000 each year. It is then appropriated back to the fire marshal to conduct those inspections. So it is it nets out at zero. And that, Madam Chair and members, is the spreadsheet. Do you want me to quick go over the bill? I mean, it's just real quick. Or,
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Chair.
Mr. Turner.
Madam Chair and members, I will quickly go over the bill and point out the first article is Judiciary appropriations, which just appropriates the spreadsheet. That's sections 1 through 16. Here we go. Sections 1 through 16 ends on page 3. Then section 17, we just spoke about this. It allocates an additional $30 of the civil court filing fee for a dissolution action to the Minnesota Family Resiliency Partnership. That is section 17. Section 18 on page 5 is the increase in court filing fees. Civil court filing fee goes up from $285 to $310 on line 5.7, except in a divorce, $315 to $340. Then down the page, line 523, the motion fee goes up from $75 to $100. That's the end of Article 1. Article 2, sections 1 to 8 appropriate the public safety section of the spreadsheet. And that takes up pages 6 to 17. On page 17, you've got section 9, Senator Latz's bill on the E-Trace system requires law enforcement to trace and report on recovered or confiscated firearms, and it exempts the DNR and the State Patrol from the provisions of the bill. Then we move to section 10 on line 18. This is a long rider which makes one change. It's pages 18 to 28. It extends the availability of a $5 million grant for Ramsey County Youth Homes to June 30th, 2027. This is an appropriation from the 2023 session. The date change is on page 21. Then section 11 begins on page 28. And once again, this is a long section. It's related to the DOC fiscal year 25 deficiency. It authorizes up to $10 million in reallocations between programs and divisions. This reallocation authority plus the $9.1 million appropriation in fiscal year 25 in section 6 of the bill will make the department whole at the end of this fiscal year. And that rider goes from page 28 to 36. And then finally, the last section in this article Section 12, Task Force on Mandatory Minimum Sentences. It establishes a task force to assess whether current laws and practices promote public safety and equity in sentencing and make recommendations to the legislature. A task force must convene by August 1, 2025 and report its findings and recommendations to the legislature by August 15, 2026. And that takes us to the end of Article 2. Article 3, it implements the transfer of the Financial Crimes and Fraud Unit from the Department of Commerce to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in the Department of Public Safety. This language is lifted directly from the governor's revised budget bill, and I trust that it contains all the necessary substantive and conforming changes to make that transfer. And that, Madam Chair, is Senate File 1417.
Thank you for the walkthrough. Members, are there any questions about the A1 amendment or the spreadsheet this time? Okay. Senator Latz, did you want to move to testimony or take up members' amendments?
Madam Chair, I just assume go to the public testimony at this time, and then we can address amendments.
Okay.
Some of which may end up being related to some of the topics of testimony, or it would not surprise me if that's the case.
Sounds good. I will ask Deputy Commissioner Khan from the Department of Corrections to come forward and Commissioner Jacobson from the Department of Public Safety.
Hello, Deputy Commissioner.
Deputy Commissioner.
Chair and members of the committee, my name is Safia Khan and I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Corrections. Thank you for allowing me to testify in your committee today. Commissioner Schnell wanted to be here with you, however, he is currently meeting with victim families ahead of today's parole hearings and he sends his regrets. Chair and members, I want to thank you for all your hard work this session. The responsibilities of this committee are significant and the decisions you must make are difficult, especially when presented with the challenges of the budget forecast. That said, we are concerned about the proposed operating adjustment in this bill for the Department of Corrections. While we recognize the many demands of this committee's budget target, the $50 million in the next biennium is less than half of the governor's recommendation for our department. I do want to acknowledge that the Senate has put forward a significantly higher operating adjustment than the House has, and we are grateful for the recognition, your recognition of the DOC's operational needs. And our hope is that as the legislative process continues, the final allocation will reflect the level of support we critically need at this time. Without a strong operating adjustment, it will be difficult for the DOC to even maintain safe staffing levels, let alone reach our recommended levels. This could mean more frequent lockdowns, challenges meeting mandates, and a less safe environment for both my colleagues who work in our prisons and Minnesotans in our care. But Chair and members, this isn't just about operations, it's about people. Majority of DOC's budget is dedicated to staffing key and core programs and fulfilling constitutionally and statutorily mandated services. Therefore, layoffs are a tough reality that we cannot ignore. To us, these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are people who are doing vital work in our state's prisons and on our streets to keep the state safe. When we lose corrections staff, we risk losing the very people who make our prisons run, who supervise people transitioning from prisons to community, and the entire mission of the DOC suffers as a result. Reduced staffing also impacts our ability to provide the programming that is essential to preparing people for successful re-entry into our communities. People come into our care with high needs and challenges. They need mental health services and treatment and education and health care. 95% of our population will be back out in our communities as our neighbors. We do not want to warehouse Minnesotans who need interventions. With 97% of DOC's budget coming from the state's general fund, we have little flexibility to absorb shortfalls. When funding doesn't meet our operational needs, the consequences are immediate and tangible. I truly value the support this committee has shown for the Department of Corrections over the years. And as the budget process moves forward, I respectfully urge you to reconsider the current operating adjustment level. This funding decision will have wide-reaching implications, not only for the safety and stability of our correctional facilities, but also for the dedicated individuals who serve in them and for the future success of those in our custody. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacobson?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you. My name is Bob Jacobson, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. It's my honor to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Senate Public Safety budget provisions. I recognize the committee is faced with the difficult task of setting a budget in the midst of a challenging forecast. I'm appreciative of the investments included, but I'm also concerned that there are items recommended by the governor that have not been included. With the operating adjustment that has been recommended, again, we understand the difficult challenges that you face. However, with the operating adjustments as laid out, provided in this bill, the BCA and alcohol and gambling enforcement will likely need to cut sworn peace officer positions as a result. Also, the Department of Public Safety would be currently, as it stands, unable to afford the rent cost for the new statewide emergency operations center, which is located in Blaine. Without that adjustment, that building potentially could sit empty. We certainly continue, as everybody knows, continue to have concerns about ongoing federal spending cuts as well that could negatively impact public safety in the state and most public safety agencies across the state as well. The Grant Administration Authority, a critical part of administering grants is having those resources to complete that critical oversight function to combat fraud and misuse of public funds. We are hopeful that this committee will reconsider inclusion of the agency-wide Grant Administration Authority recommended by the governor. The fraud unit, you've heard a lot about that in this session. This initiative represents a significant advancement, we believe, in Minnesota's efforts to combat fraud and financial crime. It also includes reporting requirements for state agencies to report criminal fraud to the BCA, and that requires the BCA to report annually to the legislature. We appreciate that. We are disappointed that the bill doesn't include some of the additional resources recommended by the governor to further support this work. Crime Victim Services, we do want to thank you for the inclusion of critical public safety funding. Priority is laid out by the governor's recommended budget. The support for crime victims is critical. Research shows that these services help fight victims, heal, seek health care, and report crimes. This is, as you know, another critical area where federal funding is certainly at risk. The long-term missing and unsolved homicide request for the BCA, we know that this would support ongoing impact to victims and families. This one-time funding would be critical. IC Poet, Post-Training Fund. One of the most successful grant programs that we have at DPS is the IC Poet grant program in OJP. We are disappointed to see that that funding in this program was not included in this bill. As you know, this program has resulted in nearly 100 new peace officers in the state from a diverse background who likely would not become peace officers without it. This continues to be a critical issue for law enforcement around the state of Minnesota as well. I hope you agree with me and the governor that law enforcement associations and many of our colleagues who support this program and that continued funding. I really do appreciate reference Armor, the ability to transfer funds to MnDOT for the building and maintenance of the Armor radio towers and technology, the backbone of the Armor radio network. Many of those existing towers are outdated and in need of repairs and upgrades. So we appreciate that ability. Our State Fire Marshal's Office, thank you for including the governor's recommended increases for the Urban Search and Rescue Team, Air Rescue Team, and Hazardous Materials Response Team. And also thank you for incorporating the governor's recommendation to change the charter school fire inspection fee. It may seem small, but it impacts our staffing in our local jurisdictions. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify today. We appreciate your continued work and work of this committee and look forward to continued discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll ask Nico Bauer, Government Relations Director from the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, to come forward, and Jeff Shorba from the Minnesota Courts.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nico Bauer, and I serve as the Government Relations Director for the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. So first off, I want to thank the committee for prioritizing MDHR's base budget needs in your appropriation. The support in SF 1417 is critical for the continued enforcement of the Minnesota Human Rights Act, which is a cornerstone of our state civil rights protections. With that said, and as stated in our letter, we are concerned that the funds included as part of the department's operating increase will be insufficient to meet rising costs. As the committee is aware, MDHR is a people-powered agency, and these funds are intended to support the department in meeting our statutory obligations while also helping to cover essential costs, including healthcare and IT services. Our talented team ensures that every Minnesotan receives the protections guaranteed by the Minnesota Human Rights Act. The appropriation in SF 1417 reaffirms the longstanding commitment that legislators have made to maintaining strong civil rights protections and enforcement. So in conclusion, we thank you for your continued support. We understand that there are a variety of complex budget decisions that you all are facing, and we look forward to additional conversations to explore how we can meet the department's needs. And so thank you again, and that concludes my testimony.
Thank you. And I will also ask Jeff Potts from the Minnesota Chiefs of Police to come forward. And Mr. Shorba, you can begin.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I just wanted to briefly testify and thank the chair and the committee for their hard work on this bill. It was a very difficult budget situation that you were dealt with, and we greatly appreciate the effort that you have put forward for compensation and other costs within our budget. We recognize it's not nearly what we asked for, and we're still going to have challenges with both our staff and judges in terms of recruitment and retention, but at least it's something, and we hope that we can work with you as we go forward in the next biennium to see what else can be done. We are grateful. It increases payments to our forensic examiners. It doesn't go all the way that we negotiated with them, but we think it will help to maintain that crucial contractor workforce that will help us to maintain these increasing number of exams in the psychological area. We also appreciate the funding for digital accessibility to comply with the federal mandates that are due in April of 2026. Finally, thank you to the chair and members for including our 3 policy provisions in the Senate file, and we look forward to working with you as we move forward in the legislative session. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Ethan Vogel from AFSCME to come forward. Mr. Potts, you can begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. My name is Jeff Potts. I'm the Executive Director for the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association. We represent more than 300 police chiefs across the state and more than 150 command staff members. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Minnesota Sheriff's Association here today. We'd like to take a moment to thank the committee for including a few provisions in the policy portion of the bill. Those include the first responder buffer zone guidelines, thanks to Senator Seeberger, the use of mobile tracking devices on a fleeing motor vehicle, and the federal background checks by political subdivisions. While we do understand the difficulty that the budget forecast presents, we'd like to articulate some concerns about a few provisions where there were cuts. In the recruitment, we was already spoke about by the Commissioner. The IC Poet and the Pathway programs have been instrumental in bringing more people into law enforcement and during a very challenging time. However, we are extremely frustrated with the cuts in the bill to the Philando Castile Memorial Training Fund. For your reference, that is line 213 on the spreadsheet or lines 15.23 in the A1. This appropriation is vitally important for agencies' ability to be reimbursed for costs related to state-mandated training for use of force, crisis response, conflict management, cultural diversity, and autism training. 70% of the police departments in Minnesota have fewer than 20 officers. For small agencies, this fund, the Philando Castile Memorial Training Fund, represents their sole source of training funds.
If this appropriation does not continue, simply put, police officers will not be in compliance with the training requirements set forth by the legislature. We believe the training requirements play a significant role in developing and maintaining positive relationships between communities and their local police officers by preparing the officers with the necessary skills to address any situation they may encounter in the field. Funding the Philando Castillo Memorial Training Fund at only $1 million per year is an 83% cut to the to the training budgets for our agencies. What makes this so disappointing for us is the past 5 years, this legislature was laser focused on reforming law enforcement. More than 30 bills were passed to address problems and shortcomings. At the root of the reforms was training. Making sure police officers were well trained was a top priority. As recently as last year, we came into the legislative session eager to fix the school resource issue. Thanks to Senator Westland, we were able to do that, but how do we do it? We required a policy, and we now require school resource officers to attend 40 hours of training specific to being a school resource officer. And to be clear, despite adding additional mandated trainings for police officers over the past 5 years, we have never asked the legislature to increase the funding for the Philando Castillo Memorial Training Fund beyond the $6 million. We've only asked that the state continue to fund it at the $6 million for those mandated trainings. If this bill passes, we look forward to having further conversations with community members. We stand by eager to answer questions or provide perspective on why these funds are so vitally important to police agencies across the state. Madam Chair and members, thanks for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you. Devin Bruce from MAPE, you can come forward, and then Mr. Vogel, you can begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senators. My name is Ethan Vogel, Legislative Director with AFSCME Council 5. AFSCME is a public and private sector labor union, and among the 43,000 workers we represent statewide, our members work for Civil Legal Aid, Guardian Ad Litem's Board, the courts, Department of Corrections, of course, and elsewhere throughout the committee's jurisdiction. Mr. Chair, thank you for your work on putting this budget together. I recognize the fiscal constraints that you've had to work with and the challenge of the budget target. I want to express our appreciation for the inclusion of the funding for MSOP Moose Lake. A few concerns I'd like to raise. First, the discontinuation of the Sentence to Service program to save $3.5 million over the biennium. We feel that the long-term costs of eliminating this program are going to be outweighed by the short-term savings. If counties do not pick up the cost of the program, and the proposal relies on counties picking up the program entirely. And I'm hearing mixed reviews from our folks in the fields about what equipment is going to be transferred over to counties to pick up that program, and so we're concerned that it will be discontinued entirely. STS allows the incarcerated population to build skills and demonstrate and strengthen their work ethic throughout their rehabilitation. And without this programming option, they will have more idle time, and they won't have the opportunity to build the same relationships that now allow them to leave incarceration with job references to help them land employment upon release. The second concern generally is the shortfall of funding for operating adjustments across the board. If we want to provide the best services to the public, if we want to ensure safe working conditions, we have to make the investments. And the increases here, while appreciated, again, given the budgetary constraints, they are cuts against anticipated inflation. This time 2 years ago, staffing levels at the Department of Corrections were severely low. Morale was low. Officers were being forced into mandated overtime regularly and at unsustainable rates. And it made recruitment and retention nearly impossible. And every month, more and more experienced COs were leaving, and the staffing shortfall led to prolonged lockdowns. It led to programming being withheld. It led to facilities being taken over by the incarcerated population and staff burnout. The investments made in 2023 and last year as well helped tremendously in making wages of state correctional officers competitive with their counterparts in the counties and at the federal level. But even at the governor's full funding request this biennium, I worry that we're going to experience an erosion against inflation for wages, and it'll be a step backwards, returning us to the dangerous times of a few years back. Again, I appreciate the challenge that you had. I would just advocate for all committee members to go and advocate for a larger target in this committee's jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. For the record, my name is Devin Bruce. I'm the Director of Legislative and Political Affairs for the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, MAPE, a union representing over 18,000 workers across all agencies, boards, and commissions. First, recognizing, as others have already, that this target was not sufficient to cover enough of the need in this jurisdiction, as well as many other jurisdictions for committees across the board. The one piece that I really wanted to talk about was the operating adjustments that you've already been hearing about, and its impact, particularly for DPS, on criminal and fraud investigations, processing for evidence testing, as well as emergency preparedness, Department of Human Rights for their investigations, and for the DOC, this proposal is essentially a reversion to warehousing. As the governor's proposal was already significantly pared back from the actual department's need, the budget shortfalls and staffing reductions will be borne largely on the therapeutic and rehabilitative services provided to persons who are incarcerated at our correctional facilities across the state. There are similar devastating cuts to the community supervision division that will impair my members' abilities to balance their caseloads as well as monitor higher risk offenders. We hope that as this bill moves forward that we're able to get a higher target as we move towards kind of the final joint targets, if there is one. And we hope to get your support on increasing the operating adjustments and prevent layoffs. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our testimony. Senator, we're going to move to some amendments. And Senator Latz, I believe you have a few oral amendments.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. There were a series of 4 bills that we were not able to include before because they either weren't quite ready from a staffing standpoint or because there were some outstanding fiscal issues that needed to be resolved. We have now resolved the fiscal issues, and we're in a position to add these provisions. So I'd like to first move as an amendment, the inclusion of Section 1 of Senate File 281. This is a Senator Lang bill that enhances the penalties for coercion crime that causes great bodily harm or death of the victim.
Members, do you have questions about this? It's going to be an oral amendment.
It's to Senate File 281.
Okay.
It's being passed out. Could I get a copy of the materials being handed out as well, please?
We'll get that to you, Senator Latz.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to have Mr. Backus read what the amendment would be again, and then we'll see if there's questions.
Madam Chair, members, Senator Latz moved that Section 1 of Senate File 281 be added to the Omnibus bill. And just FYI, that means not Section 2, which is the public awareness campaign, just Section 1.
And could we get an explanation, Madam Chair, for how the fiscal issue was resolved on this?
Yes, Senator Latz. I believe it's just deleting the public awareness campaign in section 2. Correct, Mr. Turner? Yeah.
Madam Chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
And then, Madam Chair, I
Senator
trust there's no measurable bed cost anticipated.
Mr. Turner?
That's correct. Madam Chair.
Okay. Any questions, members? All right. Senator Latz moves the oral amendment as described by council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion prevails and the amendment's adopted. Senator Latz?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move Senate File 319 be incorporated into the Senate File 1417 as well. This has to do with providing penalties for a crime of altering controlled substances with fentanyl. So it is a new crime. This is Senator Curran's bill. And I also trust that there's no measurable bed cost, so that resolves the fiscal issue here. I see Mr. Turner nodding his head yes.
Any questions? Okay. Senator Latz has moved to incorporate the language from Senate File 319 into the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion prevails. The amendment's adopted. Senator Latz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move adoption of Senate File 456 as an amendment into Senate File 1417. This is Senator Utke's bill, which provides for a new crime protecting children and vulnerable adults from exposure to fentanyl.
Any questions, members? Senator Limmer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Latz, what would be the penalty for such a crime?
Senator Latz?
Madam Chair, I don't have the penalty provision of Minnesota Statute Section 152.137 in front of me. Perhaps staff can answer the question.
Mr. Backus?
Madam Chair and members, it's a 5-year felony under subdivision 3 of that law.
So, Madam Chair,
Senator Latz?
there's already a list of prohibited conduct in this statute, including storing methamphetamine waste products and paraphernalia, not permitting a child to ingest methamphetamine, but not included in the list is permitting a child to ingest fentanyl. And obviously fentanyl's become, it's no longer emerging. It's a big problem right now. So I think that's a good addition to the prohibited conduct under this statute.
Madam Chair.
Senator Limmer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I look at this, just my first blush on this is knowingly causing or permitting a child or a vulnerable adult to inhale fentanyl. Seems like it's a much more serious crime than what is in the existing chapter. I would tend to think that it would require a little higher penalty. Perhaps we can continue to discuss this as we progress the bill. I would like to have a little more analysis of proportionality in this provision. But I don't have a suggestion right now without a little more analysis on proportionality. Is that something, Senator Latz, that you and I can discuss as the bill progresses?
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Latz?
Yeah, we certainly can discuss that. I do appreciate Senator Utke bringing this forward and Senators Limmer and Pappas for co-authoring the bill. I think any issue we get into with increasing penalties could create a fiscal bed cost, so we'd have to be a little cautious about that as well. So we just at least want to make sure that this territory is covered.
Senator Limmer?
No, I look forward to our discussion, Senator Latz.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments on the bill, so Senator Latz moves to incorporate the language from Senate File 456 into the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion prevails and the amendment's adopted. Okay, I think the final one is House File 129, Senator Latz.
Madam Chair, I move that the language from House File 129 be amended into the A1 amendment. Madam Chair, this has to do with the timing of reports, the program evaluation from the Director of Child Sex Trafficking Prevention to make sure that we get it at appropriate times for us to be able to address, as a legislature, to address the reports themselves.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, all of these oral amendments were bills that were heard in committee. I think we were just waiting on some of this fiscal impact to be sure to include it into the language. But is there any are there any questions about Senator Limmer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Latz, as I'm looking at this House file as in the form of an amendment, I'm looking at line 1.8, and this is just a background question I'm trying to gain a little perspective on. The Director of Child Sex Trafficking Prevention, what department does that fall in?
Senator Latz?
Madam Chair, I'd ask Senate Counsel to answer the question.
Mr. Backus?
Madam Chair, members, I think the question is, 145, that's a health care chapter of law.
This was also heard in the Health and Human Services Committee before deadlines.
And Madam Chair, I will also note that the line 1.13 provides for the evaluation to be provided to the to the chairs and the ranking minority members of the legislative bodies, committees with jurisdiction over health and public safety. So, I mean, that's the other major addition here is right now the evaluation was not specifically sent to the legislature, only to the Commissioner of Health.
Okay. All right, seeing no other questions, Senator Latz moves to include the language from House File 129 into the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion prevails and the amendment's adopted. That concludes the oral amendments that you have for us, Senator Latz. So we're going to move to the A3 amendment. Senator Howe.
I didn't have a list to follow, so I didn't know where I was going to fall in. But thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Latz, I appreciate you allowing me to bring this. This would have been Senate File 2821, is incorporated into the A3, and what it does is it actually, I think, puts into verbiage what our original intent was when we had the public safety killed in the line of duty death benefit. And because of some strict application, we were struggling to get folks covered. And so I talked to Commissioner Jacobson and worked with the DPS staff, Ms. Gallagher and Mr. Roche, and we came up with something that I do believe will get there. I do have an oral amendment on line 2.21. After volunteer, add or paid on call, just to make it clear that we're that they both apply. They both are, if they're a member of a volunteer or paid on call fire department, they this benefit will apply to them. And that is the amendment. The cost of the amendment is they've got funds already there, but we have to, that appropriation has to be extended to June 30th, 2027 in order to give the folks ample time to apply that were probably denied. We believe that there's up to about 6 public safety officers that will probably qualify for this benefit because it does go retroactive back to 1 February 2020 to cover some of those folks that died with due to COVID.
Senator Latz?
Madam Chair, I consider this to be friendly. For me, the key component here is the finding that would have to be made that the death was, in fact, in the line of duty, so that the complications were caused by exposure to the infectious diseases sustained in the line of duty. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a gap in our compensation mechanisms for line of duty deaths, and this should remedy it in a way which will not have a direct fiscal impact on our budget. So funds are already in the pipeline for this. We just need to make sure that there's adequate time also for the applications to be made.
Okay. Members, do you have any questions? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
If I can
Senator
just say, I greatly appreciate the assistance of Commissioner Jacobson's department and staff here to put this thing together. It was a lot of hours to go back and forth and make this thing happen. So I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just to make sure we're doing this correctly, Senator Howe moves the A3 amendment incorporating a change on line 2.21 after volunteer, inserting the words or paid on call. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion prevails and the A3 amendment is adopted. We're going to move to the A5. Senator Seeberger, would you move that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the A5 amendment.
Thank you. And then Senator Latz, can you explain?
Yes, members, one area that gave me a lot of heartburn as we were working through our budget proposal was the recommendation to cut the STS, or Sentence to Service programs. I've had a lot of direct experience with STS at the county level, at the local level, and I believe that is a very valuable program as a meaningful alternative to incarceration and as a means of bringing people into providing public service or community service as a way to compensate society for the harm that they have caused that resulted in their sentences. So I really think it's important, and we did go back and refined our budget proposal so that we could find the money to keep the sentence to service programs in there. So the A5 amendment does those reallocations and provides the funding for the sentence to service programs.
Thank you. I know we heard about that in testimony earlier as well. Are there any questions, members? Okay, seeing none, Senator Seeberger moves the A5 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion prevails and the A5 amendment is adopted. We'll move to, Senator Seeberger, A6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would offer the A6 amendment. All right, thank you, Madam Chair. The A6 amendment requires the State Fire Marshal to create a report on firefighting services in Minnesota, and it allows funding for the report to be requested to the Fire Service Advisory Committee, so it would not come out of this committee's target.
Senator Latz?
Could I just ask Senator Seeberger to give a little more description of what the assessment would consist of?
Senator Seeberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Latz, this would direct the State Fire Marshal to do a couple of things. Number one, look at sort of a macro level review of incidents. Number two, it would create an analysis of the number of fire departments and types of staffing in Minnesota compared to other states. Number three, it would conduct an analysis of available data sets to determine what data is incomplete, inaccurate, missing, and make informed decisions on that for the future. Number four, would conduct an analysis of the effective response force of firefighters across the state, identifying trends or patterns. Number five, an analysis of the training, certification, and licensing of Minnesota firefighters. It would also conduct an analysis of recruitment and retention, an analysis of fire department equipment, and funding of firefighter services in Minnesota and how it compares to other states. And this is in response to a number of concerns that have been raised both this session and in prior sessions with regard to all of the above. And in particular, a concern that I had following conversations with constituents on the training and certification process.
All right. Senator Latz.
Madam Chair, I consider this to be a friendly amendment.
Any questions, members? Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering, Senator Seeberger, you said the funding comes from another area. Where exactly is that funding going to be?
Senator Seeberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Anderson. The funding would come from the Fire Service Advisory Committee, the Fire Board funding. They have the money for it. It would not come out of this target.
Senator Anderson.
So, Madam Chair, Senator Seeberger, is that in like state government, or is that within our preview as far as our money?
Maybe they can come up and explain it more fully. Thank you.
Thank you. If you can just begin by introducing yourself for the record.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is John Cunningham. I'm Assistant Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. I spent 26 years in the fire service, most recently as a fire chief in Brooklyn Park. Just to answer that specific question, the Fire Service Advisory Committee is a legislatively established committee that has the responsibility and the ability to appropriate funds out of the fire safety account on a one-time basis. So any funds that remain in the fire safety account that aren't part of any base budget approved by the legislature is available for distribution to fire service-related programs for one-time projects, and this would fit that the scope of that work.
Senator Lemire. Yeah. Did you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Whenever we get a request to take money and use money from the fire safety account, many of us get very protective. And it's been something that's been ongoing since about 2010. And that was the date that the legislature made a commitment, at least at that time, to make sure that we don't raid this fund for any other purpose. Could you tell me how much money you would estimate that this report would cost?
Assistant Commissioner.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thanks for the question. And just for some additional information, we did do some stakeholder engagement last night with the chair of the Minnesota Fire Service Coalition, as well as the president of Minnesota State Fire Chiefs Association and the Fire Department Association that are in support of doing this study. This is something that's probably long overdue to get a good analysis on what the needs are in the fire service and to do a really data-driven, qualitative and a quantitative analysis to support the needs of Minnesota firefighters. With respect to that account, I don't have an exact balance today, but with respect to how much this project would cost, that's something I would still need to do a little bit more research. There's a few states that are doing similar work, We do have some initial money in the fire marshal account to cover the startup costs to start this work, but having the ability to go to FSAC to request additional funding would help continue that. My experience as a fire chief, these studies cost upwards of $60,000 to $70,000 for a full study. So if you extrapolate that, we're probably expecting, upwards of $750,000 to $1 million to really do a full statewide study that does stakeholder engagement, outreach, and a full quantitative analysis to get the data that we are ultimately looking for through Senator Seeberger's request.
Madam Chair,
Senator Limmer.
the reason I asked that question, since there was not a dollar amount referenced, this is not intended to be a blank check. And I'd like to know if someone could tell me what the existing balance is in this account. And perhaps the operating costs per year, so we know exactly how much money that will be used in the account.
Assistant Commissioner?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I would need to do a little bit further research on the actual, the overall balance on the account. Today I wasn't prepared to speak to that. No, we could probably do some quick analysis on that. One thing that is unique on the Fire Service Advisory Committee, they do annually review requests that come in, so this would fit that process. They're actually about ready to post for requests to come in, so the timing on this would work, and they would evaluate that in a whole list of other requests, like one-time funding for Minnesota Task Force 1 and some of the other state teams. So this is very much in line with some of the other projects that they evaluate on an annual basis, and they look at the overall budget impact that would have. So, Marshall.
Thank you. And if you can begin by introducing yourself for the record.
Yeah, good morning. I'm State Fire Marshal Dan Cryer. And I appreciate the discussion on this bill and this amendment here. From the fire safety account, so as far as when that Fire Safety Advisory Committee will meet, the public posting of their proposals will open next week, and then they will be accepting proposals through May. Decisions on what funding recommendations they will make to the Commissioner of Public Safety won't happen until a biennium budget is set. So they won't be able to allocate or make recommendations for funding until they know how much money is actually available and left in that account.
Senator Limmer.
Madam Chair, don't get me wrong. I think this Fire Service Assessment Report is necessary. I was just hoping we would have had a specific dollar amount as in your request. If it's true that it's what you say it is, we'll probably hold you at that. I'm comfortable with that. And I know that the fire safety account is just one that we've tried to be very protective of both Senator Latz and myself in looking at making sure that our fire professionals have the necessary training resource. So I'm fine with the answers so far. Thank you.
Did you have any follow-up, Senator Anderson? Okay. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, Senator Seeberger moves the A6 amendment. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion prevails and the A6 amendment is adopted. Okay. Senator Seeberger, would you move the A7 amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the A7.
All right, I can speak to this while it's being handed out. We did include in our bill funding for crime victim services, but the specific language that we had adopted in committee when the bill was heard, which was Senate File 852, was just missed in the A1 amendment. There are a few changes that I just want to note for folks. So we are still creating a special revenue account, so you would see that change and transfer on the spreadsheet. The language that we heard in committee did include the corporate offenders penalty assessment language that is in this A7 amendment. The language in that we heard in committee earlier had some fees, marriage fees. Those are not included in the A7 amendment. And there was also some reporting language that is not included in the A7 amendment. So those are the changes, but this is just the correct policy language that we wanted to include in the bill regarding crime victim services. Senator Latz.
Madam Chair, I consider this to be a friendly amendment.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In looking over the front page of the amendment, I see on lines 28, 29, the term underserved communities. How is underserved communities defined or referenced? Is it by crime rates, or is it, how is that done?
Senator Limmer, it goes on to say underserved communities most impacted by violence that reflect the ethnic, racial, economic, cultural, and geographic diversity of the state. I think when we heard the bill, we definitely heard about certain, populations that are disproportionately impacted by crime. We certainly, see some patterns when it comes to our victim survivors, those who are experiencing domestic violence or sexual violence. But this is really just intended to make sure it's going to those who are experiencing the most harm.
Madam Chair.
Senator Limmer.
I'm always concerned that some of these reference points seem to be rather broad and not a little more specific. I could say that certain areas in the suburbs might be impacted by violence. And how one defines ethnic or racial or economic conditions without specificity, I'm just concerned that the grants may go in directions that may not acutely help solve the issue that gets manifest in specific areas and not in others. That's the only concern I have.
Sure. If it's helpful, we did include this language in the 2023 version of the bill. I know that the advocates that I have been working with have a great relationship with the Office of Justice Programs. We definitely heard about the need to fund these services from Commissioner Jacobson today. So I do think it's going to the intended purpose. My concern is that it's not enough funding, and we're facing an absolute crisis right now. And if we don't get some long-term funding for crime victim services, we will have shelters shut down. We will not have advocates for entire counties. We're really in a difficult position, especially with the cuts coming from the federal government. So I'm hopeful that we can continue working on this as session moves on, but I think there is a great relationship between those in the Office of Justice Programs, the advocates, shelters, hotlines, the folks that are providing these services across the state.
Madam Chair,
Senator Limmer.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the federal cuts that's coming? I was not aware that there are.
Yes, Senator Limmer. So this crime victim services has been experiencing less funding for several years now. There's the sort of VOCA model at the federal level where there hasn't been as much money coming in from those lawsuits. But this year there were entire grants that were just sort of shut down. There are folks working for certain organizations who typically would, be applying for those grants or would be sometimes seeking out the funding on a reimbursement basis and have been unable to do so. I think that's just kind of been in line with some of the decisions that we have seen the Trump administration make in cutting off funding or freezing funding in the last few months. So there are examples of that when we heard we heard the bill, we heard some of those examples, and a few weeks before we heard Senate File 852, there was a day on the Hill for crime victim services where they also kind of talked about what they were experiencing, where people were expecting to receive grants or expecting to submit reimbursement and have been unable to do so.
Madam Chair.
Senator Limmer.
Could you tell me what proportion of the victim crime account relies on a federal grant that that, in your words, cut off? Do we have a specific dollar amount of what has been committed by the federal government and what the proportion of that funding is for the Minnesota Victims of Crime account?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. If there are folks here for the Office of Justice Programs who can speak to that, that would be great. But I believe what we do is sort of supplement here through state funding to provide additional dollars for crime victim services. And one of the reasons why we put so much money towards that in 23, last year in 2024, and again are hoping to do so this year, is to account for those losses at the federal level. But please come forward. Director Babine.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Senator Limmer. Thank you for the questions about the federal funding. So currently, crime victim services grants receive both state and federal funding. The percentage of federal to state has changed over the years as state or federal funding has decreased over time, and the state has stepped up to provide funding for these critical services in recent years. So the main source of funding from the feds is the Victims of Crime Act funding, VOCA. And just for a little perspective, the annual award that we get from VOCA, that Minnesota gets for that, for a long time, from the year 2000 to 2014, it was around $6 or $7 million per year, very stable. From federal fiscal year 15 through 2019, the annual VOCA award increased significantly, with awards ranging from $31 million to $56 million per year. So that $6 to $7 million jump up to, it bounced around a little bit, but around 30 was pretty common, and then there was the 1 year with 56. Since 2020, that award amount has continued to come down. So at one point we received $28 million, and then it has really stair-stepped or kind of went back and forth. And right now we have our current VOCA award for federal fiscal year 24 is $13.25 million. So again, most recently, 5-10 years ago, we were receiving $30 million in that award, and now we have 13. We don't have an award amount for federal fiscal year 25 yet. That usually, we get that usually in the summer, sometimes an indication in the spring. But we know that even if that 13 million were to remain steady, all the federal funding from the Department of Justice is up in the air right now. We also received 3 other federal funding sources. It's the Violence Against Women Act funding. We get about $1.5 million a year for that. There's the Sexual Assault Services Program, or SASP, and that's about 1.8. Again, all these numbers vary a little bit year to year. These are more stable. There's also the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act, which is $4.5 million a year, or FIPSA. So altogether, if any of those grants are frozen or cut, or staff are not at the DOJ to administer those funds and enable us to seek reimbursement for those funds, that will have a huge effect on our state crime victim services providers.
Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you tell me if are cuts officially announced by the federal administration at this time?
Director Babine.
Yep, Madam Chair, Senator Limmer, right now, the awards that Minnesota, that Office of Justice Program serves as the administering agency for, from the Department of Justice, we have not seen those cut. There's been at least one that's been, was up for and posted for requests for proposals or applications to come in, and that was taken down for review. We understand that many of these grant awards are under review and we don't know the outcome of those. There are others, and I know there's at least one in the audience who receive direct funding from the federal government for some of these DOJ Department of Justice programs that doesn't flow through the state, and those are ones, again, that have been taken down and are not available for funding right now.
Okay. So,
Senator
Madam Chair, am I to surmise that the current administration has not made any formal decisions on cuts as we have been described?
Well, if I can just add in before that, Senator Limmer, I think one of the things that Director Babine just said, and I was aware of from some of the advocates, is they're not going through OJP. There are instances where they would have been submitting for reimbursement and were unable to do so because the grant was pulled down.
And Madam Chair,
Senator Limmer.
in listening to the testimony just now, it looks as though these accounts have been depleted over recent years by different administrations, not just the one that might be contemplating at this time. So apparently there's enough blame to go around. I made my point, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Senator Latz.
We backfilled $20 million in the last budget cycle for VOCA cuts. This budget is forward-looking. We're trying to assess the landscape looking forward to the next 2 years. What we know is that the current administration has frozen the grant process that would normally be going on right now for review or for whatever purpose. My understanding is that there were some grants that were awarded and expenditures were made in reliance on the availability of those funds. And those funds were not made available for reimbursement, even though the grants had already been approved on the federal level. So these would have been grantees in Minnesota providing victim-related services that had received grant approvals and were expending money in reliance on that, who went into the accounts to get reimbursed as they ordinarily would, and the accounts were frozen, their access was denied, and they couldn't get reimbursement. So that's just the current lay of the land. What we don't know is what the future holds. And we're all, in many areas, waiting to see what the federal government is going to do. But what we're trying to do here is to create some sustainable state funding for these programs. And the urgency for that is only heightened by the uncertainty about what's going to happen with federal funding. So that's the reason why, as you know, Senator Limmer, I was working on a proposal to provide a dedicated revenue source of fees with a special revenue account ongoing that would pull these annual or biannual budget decisions out of the general fund and provide some reliability and sustainability for future funding for these victim services organizations. Right now, we don't have the necessary support to move forward with that, but that even heightens the importance of at least trying to take a step of walling some of this funding off right now into a special revenue account, at least provide a few sources for it. I think will be quite insufficient, but it's a start in the right direction.
Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Latz, you and I both know the importance of the victims of crime account. And I agree with you. There needs to be more funds for it. I, too, was dismayed that your plan was not gaining the support it was needed. And you and I continue to have discussions, and hopefully we'll find a source. My concern is not in the amendment itself. My concern was about how it was presented without enough description to realize that in recent years, we have had reductions in the federal monies going into this account, and it's not just one current administration. And I was trying to bring a little bit more transparency to the discussion. Other than that, I urge the committee to support the A7 amendment.
Any other questions? Senator Kroon and then Senator Anderson. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking here, it says the Office of Justice Programs will be the one that the finances will be appropriated to, and then it says support the direct needs of the organization. Who within the Office of Justice Programs oversees these organizations and the funds they receive? I'm concerned because we've been in a fraud type situation for the last year or 2 years. I just want to make sure that these people are, is there someone within the Office of Justice Programs that's overseeing these groups that get the money?
I believe that would be Director Babine, who we just heard from.
Oh, I didn't hear that, sorry.
Senator Kroon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on a few points in the discussion. On the line 1.28, the underserved, I agree that that's just not a good legal term. I don't know what that means. Underserved in what way? Underserved by whom? Is it public safety? Is it government services? Is it? I think the amendment without that word actually functions just fine. Services funded must include services for victims of crime in communities most impacted by violence and reflect the ethnic, racial, economic, cultural, and geographic diversity of the state. To me, that works without underserved. Underserved just adds ambiguity into our statute. And I don't see what purpose it serves. So I don't know if I want to make an oral amendment. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know what the other body plans on doing with this, but I just don't think that's good lawmaking. I'll move on to the mandatory penalties part. I mean, my memory's not that good, but it wasn't too long ago we were talking about a task force setting up to look at mandatory penalties, and it seems like we're adding one here. I don't know why it makes sense here, but that was my comment number 2. I guess the main part of my question will be what these penalty assessments, I guess they're assessments and not fines, although they look like fines to me, and maybe council can tell me what the difference is, but there is no option for the court to waive it, so there's like a 30% mandatory assessment on a business, on a corporation. I guess my question is, what would happen to that assessment if let's say the corporation were to file bankruptcy, and how does that assessment compare? Where would that fall in comparison to employees, vendors, creditors, et cetera? And maybe it's just because I don't know what this assessment is, so maybe council can help me with that, or maybe you can.
Senator Kroon, I don't know that council has an exact answer, but I believe the intention here is when there are penalties that are assessed, to send that into the Crime Victim Services Fund. If there was no ability to capture those funds, I suppose it just wouldn't go into the account. Senator Kroon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I just point that out because I think fines are well established and courts know how to deal with that. I just don't know what this assessment is and why we're calling it that, and if that is going to lead to more ambiguity in other areas of unintended consequences such as bankruptcy. But it seems like we don't know the answer to that. So those are my 3 points. Underserved is not a good word for lawmakers to be putting into statute because it's vague. Ambiguous really doesn't serve any purpose. That we're creating mandatory penalties in this while we're questioning it from a global perspective overall. And then the assessment and how that relates to unintended consequences such as bankruptcy. I just don't think this is quite ready myself, but I support the underlying intent. Thank you.
I would encourage folks to join me and Senator Latz, certainly the department, in trying to find any ways to provide some sustainable, stable funding that we desperately need for crime victim services. So I would welcome any of your suggestions. We are searching, but again, are facing a crisis and are trying to find some ways to bring funding into this account. So please do reach out to me if you have any suggestions. Are there any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, oh, sorry. Senator Westland moves the A7 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The motion prevails and the A7 amendment is adopted. Are there any other amendments for members? To 1417, the A1D. All right, seeing none, we're going to move to, we're just going to lay this over temporarily, and we're going to move to Senate File 1098, the policy DE that we took up on Wednesday. That's being passed out. Okay, so we members took up the Senate File 1098 on Wednesday. The A1 amendment was the DE that included all the policy, and then we adopted several amendments, laid that over. We're bringing that back up because there's a few additional amendments that we're going to take. Senator Latz, did you want to speak to that briefly, and then we can move to the members' amendments?
Madam Chair, the policy DE contains bills that were mostly just policy. And we have been working on these policy items for much of the session. So it's the chairman's proposal. We'd ask to consider the additional amendments that I know are in the pipeline, and then we can incorporate everything into the omnibus bill. I've got nothing to add at this point unless there are questions.
Okay. Why don't we start, if Senator Seeberger, if you could move the A27 amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the A27.
Senator Latz, I believe this is just adding the policy language from Senator Hoffman's Senate File 3007, defining missing and endangered persons. But if you could speak to that, Senator Latz.
That's exactly what it proposes to do, Madam Chair.
Any questions? Senator Seeberger has moved the A27 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails, and the A27 amendment is adopted. And Senator Seeberger can move the A28 amendment.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Senator Latz, I have this as Senate File 2039, conforming with several changes suggested by the House MSBA and others. You can speak to that.
Madam Chair, and just for further clarification on the previous amendment, it had to do primarily with adding autism to the covered diagnoses. Now, with regard to the 828 amendment, this has to do with the judicial safety proposals. The other body's been doing some work on it as well. The State Bar Association has reviewed it. The parties have been in conversation, and what we have before us is an amendment that would bring almost all of the language that's been working through the other body into our bill, so they're pretty close to the same. The only thing that would not be the same, as I understand it, would be line 2.13, where we have authority for the local governments to charge a fee of $40 for each proposed cloaking of the real property records. The other body included language up to in front of their dollar amount. Their dollar amount is different than ours, but I think up to makes sense because it appears that there may be some counties that will decide not to charge anything, and we want to give them that flexibility if they choose to do so.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Latz, in discussion with some of the proponents and the advisor or the others that are reacting to this specific proposal, there's been a question of what the actual cost would be. If the cost exceeds $40 per entry or per person, who would pick up that balance? Would it be the state committed to it, or would it be counties?
Senator Latz.
Madam Chair, Senator Limmer, these would be services provided by the local governments, the registrar of property, or whatever their formal title is. They'd be responsible for finding the property records that contain the addresses and removing those addresses from the publicly available record. It would be done in the ordinary course of the work that the local governments do. So basically, it'd be staff time on the local government's part. In terms of the costs of that, you'd have to figure out the hourly or salary compensation for the staff and how long it would take in any particular case. Hard to predict ahead of time. I don't know if there would necessarily be any out-of-pocket costs or pretty, I would think, minimus out-of-pocket costs for that. It'd be the time of the employees that are already employed by the local government agencies.
Thank you. Thank you,
Senator
Madam
Limmer.
Chair. I just wanted to make sure that we realized kind of what we're doing, because if the cost is in excess of the $40, I have heard figures in the amount of hundreds of dollars. And I just wanted to know who would be picking up the balance if that actually becomes the actuality of the fee. Is it going to be paid by the individual requester, or would it be compensated? Because now we're limiting it to $40. So obviously it's not the requester if this passes. It would be someone else is going to pay for it. I just wanted to get an idea of who or what that may be.
Senator Latz.
Madam Chair, it would be the taxpayers that are paying the taxes that fund the local government activities, or the local government aid that comes from the state, whatever the budgetary source is for that agency. They would be providing those services like they do other services. So the hesitation that I have had all along, even with a $40 fee, is that essentially what we're doing is we'd be telling judges in Minnesota that we support their desire to make their homes location private because of fear for their safety. And by the way, we require that you pay for the cost of doing so out of your own pocket, whether it's $40 for property, or we're presaging a conversation I've had with Senator Kroon and others involved here, whether it's $200 per property, or by some estimates of the county, $2,880 per property parcel. And it just seems to me it would not be fair to ask the judges to dig into their pockets at all, but let alone anywhere nearly that deep, to protect them because of the job that they do for the public. And it covers judges and their families as well. So there may be 2 or 3 or 4 properties that would need to be protected. So you can multiply whatever the fee is by the number of properties that they would be eligible to seek protection on. And that seems to me it was not fair, and it would be a financial imposition on them as well. So my own view is, frankly, there should be no fees. It should just be a service that our government provides to protect the health and safety of our judges, who are making some of the most difficult and risky decisions of anyone in government. So $40 was part of the original proposal, so I'm just going to leave that in there, not quibble over that. But once we start adding it up beyond that, I get really uncomfortable about that.
Madam Chair.
Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Latz and I have tag teamed back and forth over the last 2 years. I was the chief author of this proposal last year, and Senator Latz has taken it over. In the course of this year, both Senator Latz and I both agree that judges should be protected and their addresses to be privatized. But nevertheless, I was just looking at the tax or the spending accountability, and we may have to revisit this over time to determine whether we have a little more money in our budget account or maybe we don't. But nevertheless, I'm just putting a marker out that the cost of this will be something more than likely we're going to have to revisit in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Latz.
To that point, I will note that the fiscal note for this portion of the bill provides a budget item for the Secretary of State's office that would have to make some adjustments as well, as I recall. On the other hand, the Safe at Home program, which is also designed to protect the safety of individuals, my understanding is there is no cost to those individuals requesting participation in the Safe at Home program. So you almost get to the point where are you imposing a cost because it may be a population that we assume can afford the cost and therefore we should just impose it? Or do we stand on a principle that says if they're doing a job for the public, which is quite risky, and in fact with demonstrated risk around the country, do we charge them for the privilege of privatizing that information? And I know this is a discussion which can also go beyond this particular workforce as well, and that's a discussion for another day.
Senator Kroon.
Perhaps this might be a good time to offer my 826.
We're still on the 828, but we're coming to the 826. So are there any questions about the 828 amendment? All right. Senator Seeberger moves the 828 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion prevails and the 828 amendment is adopted. Senator Kroon to the 826.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 826 is exactly the discussion that Senator Limmer and Senator Latz were just having on the cost to administer the new judicial official data program that we're enacting, or Senator Latz called it the cloaking of real property records, which I think is a good shorthand. My amendment would raise the $40 fee in lines 127.19 and 20 from $40 to $200. And the reason for my amendment is we're creating a new fee here. This isn't a fee increase. And we're embarking on a new program for cloaking land title records, real estate records, that is going to be costly to administer. Now, the purpose of it is good, and I've been supportive of the purpose from the moment I heard about it. I am sensitive, and I do want the judicial officers, the judges, to be able to avail themselves to this new program. But to me, this is a policy debate with competing considerations about who pays for it. And I appreciate what Senator Latz said about how, the judges are doing important work, and, it shouldn't, maybe in your view, there shouldn't be a fee at all. I can see that, but at the same time, our counties will be bearing the brunt of this. And our counties are getting a lot of things shifted to them right now. And one more unfunded, or in this case, underfunded mandate is something we need to be sensitive to. And I wanted to get some basis for what this will actually cost. So the counties, based on a survey that they sent out to their counties, came up with a very broad range from $200 to, like you said, $2,880. And that all depends on how big the county is and who's doing the work, I think is kind of the variables in that wide range. So my amendment goes with the lowest number that the counties put forth. And you mentioned the Safe at Home program. That is a different program because the property records aren't necessarily an issue in the same way, because in most of those cases, the people are moving to new places rather than retroactive to the existing home that the judges are living in and want to continue living in. But more importantly, the scope of it is quite a bit larger in this case than it was at the Safe at Home program. So while we may not have had the fees for that, and they were probably easier absorbed, I would guess, than what this one will be by counties. So in my view, and I think you could be right that there's a good policy reason to not even have a fee or to have a lower nominal fee, but then maybe, in my view, the state should be funding that if we're gonna do that for the counties, rather than just give it to the counties as an unfunded or underfunded mandate. That's the purpose for my amendment. I know this may be a discussion in conference committee because the other body has a different number in there, and I have no, I know it's not realistic to think that it would ever get up to my number in my amendment of 200, but I wanted that $200 number in my amendment because there's a factual basis for it. And I think it's reasonable considering what we're doing, starting this new endeavor. And as we know, there's going to be many groups coming to us in the future asking for the same thing. And so I would like to resist that effort and just leave it with the judges, but I'm just one person, one legislator. And so if other groups start doing this, I think it's also important to have a good precedent for fees so that we don't further exacerbate the underfunded mandate on our counties because they will look at this as a precedent essentially for the fees. So that's my basis for my amendment. Appreciate member support. Thank you.
Senator Latz?
Madam Chair, I appreciate the work that Senator Kroon has done on this and the counties have done on this and trying to get a handle on what the cost might be. And as you can see from the information, there's quite a range. So it's really hard to pin down what the actual cost might turn out to be in any particular case, how accessible the records are, et cetera. So I think it'd be really hard for us to pick a number that would meaningfully and accurately identify the costs on a statewide basis for any particular county to charge. But at this point, for the reasons I've already stated in my earlier comments and discussion with Senator Limmer, I'd ask members to oppose the Senator Kroon's amendment.
Are there any other questions, comments? All right. Senator Kroon moves the A26 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No. All right. The motion does not prevail, and that is not adopted. Are there any other amendments, members? All right, Senator Latz, closing comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank the members of the committee and our incredible staff for all the work that's been done putting together these bills, all these proposals. It's been a labor of time, effort, expertise, knowledge, and attention, and I really appreciate the work the committee has done to do this. And also all the stakeholders that are going to be affected by this budget. I am not entirely happy with the budget targets that we were given. And for the reasons that were stated by some of our stakeholders here, this is a pretty tight budget. And although in comparison to some other budget areas, we are comparatively better off, in my mind, it's not enough to get the job done right for our agencies in particular. But we have to live within the targets that we were given, and this is the best effort I think that we can put together under the circumstances. I've taken some notes from our presenters as well about the impacts on staffing. I've come up with some thoughts on maybe a couple of tweaks that can be made along the way with some other aspects of it. But right now, I think this is the best we've got. And I'd ask members to support this.
Okay.
So I have a motion when you're ready.
Yes, I'm going to come back to you, Senator Latz, because I know that Senator Limmer actually wanted to make closing comments. So we still want to let you have the last word if you want to add anything at that point before you do the motion. But I'll go to Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Senator Latz, I wanted you to have the last word on this, and unfortunately you started on your final statement. But I do have to make some comments. I don't envy your challenge with the budget target that you were given this year. It's very difficult. But I can't not talk about having an $18 billion surplus last year, and now we face a $6 billion deficit in the next biennium in the statewide budget. I think shortcomings are becoming more and more apparent as we grapple with the budget. And I understand money is tight, but I've been listening carefully to those who have given comment today. The bill, I believe, does not adequately prioritize law enforcement. The bill raises court filing fees, and quite honestly, not everyone who files a lawsuit is a rich person, and neither do they qualify for civil legal aid either. The bill will, in fact, release certain felons from our prisons. The bill causes a bit of less transparency from our government, as a data bill has been included that reverses sunshine laws that we've had in the state for many, many years. The armor radio budget, Senator Latz and I have had numerous discussions over the years. I'm disappointed that leadership has not recognized the need for adequate armor radio upgrades that would seem to be rather minor in how we would do that. And the bill creates redundancy in government. It creates a new division in the Attorney General's office for work that we have heard is already being done elsewhere. Sue Abderholden from NAMI described in great detail how this new redundancy will cause much confusion and is in a way maybe not the best way to spend our money. So having said that, Senator Latz and committee chair, I hope that after conference that we will have a better bill. Oftentimes that happens in light of the backdrop, the context that we have on our budgets. I'm really hoping that we can find a way and keep working at it. But nevertheless, I've heard from commissioners countless times come up here describing the budget and in fact making comments probably about the governor's recommendations as well. The words disappointed, inefficient, inadequate, impairs caseloads were all quotes that I took down this morning. So with those comments made, I will be voting against this bill today. We'll see what happens on the Senate floor. But thank you for your presentation. I sincerely sympathize with the work and the challenge that was done. This is a very difficult area of our budget that, quite honestly, it focuses on the most basic essentials of state government. And I think it's a bit inadequate money-wise. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll end my comments. But thank you for your work, Senator Latz.
Thank you. Just before I go to you, Senator Latz, just want to see if there's any other comments that members wanted to make, so you can have the last word. Okay. Senator Latz.
Madam Chair, thank you, and thank you, Senator Limmer, for being a working partner and putting a lot of things together this year, even if there are some concerns that you still have with the bill. I do wish to respond to some of your comments. The $18 billion surplus in the last biennium was mostly one-time money that was spent on one-time expenditures. And what we have in front of us today is ongoing budget operations of state government in almost its entirety, which means that we wouldn't even have the luxury of using one-time money if it were available for almost every piece of this budget, because everything has tails. So that's where we have now ended up with the economy in a tougher position. We've lost several $100 million worth of forecast revenue just since last November. It's forecast. We are thus dealing with the forecast that we have. We have no choice but to make cuts in the ongoing expenditures in state government without bringing in new revenue. And for those who would decry the limitations in this budget or the cuts that are being made in other budgetary categories, I have to ask, what's your solution? And if the solution rules out new revenues to fund the ongoing agency needs at, say, 100% of the governor's recommendation, whose budget did include new revenues to accomplish that. If you're not willing to put new revenues on the table to fund the ongoing expenditures of state government, then the criticisms are somewhat hollow, because then you'd be left in exactly the position that I'm left in, that we as a governing body are left in, which is to how to fund ongoing operations with as little harm as we possibly can. And I don't hear any proposals coming from much of anywhere within the legislature right now for ongoing revenues to sustain the kind of budget that would keep our agencies whole as a practical matter. So that's what we're left with. And yes, Senator Limmer, you and I partnered in reducing filing fees and motion fees. I really hated to have to reverse that. It's an exact reversal. The numbers now, the increases in those fees are to precisely the levels that they were before you and I reduced them. And they are specifically for the purpose of, they're not tied statutorily this way, but they are specifically to provide the revenue to be able to increase the compensation for the forensic psychologists, examiners in the judicial branch who conduct the Rule 2001 and Rule 2002 evaluations, the mental health examinations of defendants and others within the civil commitment system and the civil justice system. So those filing fees were, I thought, a small escape hatch to be able to make sure we were able to increase the funding. Not as much as you heard from Mr. Shorba as the judicial branch prefers, or even what they had negotiated, but it will help. And it is pretty direct connection there between users of our justice system and the expenditures within the justice system for those purposes. So I'm comfortable in terms of that connection with fees. The armor funding has been an ongoing problem through multiple administrations, multiple parties in control over many years. And we're not talking about the infrastructure, we know that's already covered. But we're talking about the handheld radios that are obsolete, that are not functioning well, that are breaking down and that need to be replaced. And we've had a number of proposals every year that come in and ask for one-time money or funding specifically for this county or that county or a statewide grant program to help them pay for the costs of replacing those radios. And in a budget this tight, we simply don't have the money available to subsidize the local counties' expenditures in replacing those armor radios. I completely agree. It's an unmet need. As we talked about, I had a proposal that would have gone a long way toward meeting those needs. And so far, I don't have the support necessary to be able to get that proposal passed. And then the only other thing I'm going to talk about is my proposal to add the civil commitment division in the Attorney General's office. And while I have a great deal of respect for Ms. Abderholden and her organization and the work she's done over the years, there is a huge gap in our system right now, which despite all that work, despite all that funding, despite all the people paying attention to this, has not been addressed. And that's the people who have anosognosia, the people who are so mentally ill they don't even recognize that they're mentally ill. And they are falling through the cracks. And they are not being adequately dealt with in our system, in the civil commitment system, in our courts, in the criminal justice system, in the jails where many of them are warehoused because there aren't places, adequate space for them to go that is safe and where they can get the care that they need. We've got all these people in state government right now that are supposedly working on this, and all the years that the stakeholders been working on this, and there's still that huge gap. And I don't see any place where there is a concentrated, coordinated gathering of data and analysis and focus on solving that particular problem. And for that, in my view, we need an agency that is outside of the existing framework, a staff dedicated toward focusing on that and the bigger picture about what other gaps there are in our mental health system in Minnesota. So for me, that is the purpose of this position. The original proposal contained a number of pieces that added costs to it and added FTEs to it. When we received the fiscal note, I worked with the Attorney General's office and with the proposal to strip that down to the primary focus, which would be one higher level staff person and one administrative support staff person, to create the task force and to create the ongoing staff in the Attorney General's office to analyze the system, propose solutions, and move forward on that. And to me, that $800,000 or $900,000 in the biennium that is to be spent on accomplishing that will give us a much better path forward, just like we've got a proposal to do an overall fire safety or fire service assessment statewide. Sometimes we just need to step back, gather that data, do the analysis, and get it out of the current frameworks so we can get a more objective evaluation of what needs to be done. For the absolutely most vulnerable people in our state, I think that's worth the expenditure. And so with that, Madam Chair, again, I appreciate all the work, appreciate the attention to this. I think we've got a decent budget in light of the constraints that we are placed under, and I ask for your support.
Thank you. And do you have the motion, Senator Latz?
Madam Chair, I move that the language from Senate File 1098 as amended be incorporated into Senate File 1417 as amended by the A1 amendment.
Okay. So on that first motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion prevails. Senator Latz?
Madam Chair, I move that Senate File 1417 as amended be recommended to pass and be referred to the Committee on Finance, and that Council may make any technical and conforming changes to reflect the work of the committee.
Thank you. And on that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. No.
That motion prevails, and Senate File 1417 as amended is going to Finance. Thank you, Senator Latz.
Thank you, members.
That's all we have. I hope everyone enjoys the legislative break, and with that, we're adjourned.